I want to talk about stuff that has put you on your butt. There's nobody on the planet who hasn't had the lights turned on.
Long story short, when that happened, the money stopped. You know, and it's like, whoa, wait a second. You know, we did the blood test, we did the genes and all that, and he came up with a plan to fix me. She's like, he's gone. And I go, no. I was like, keep him alive. She goes, no. She goes, he's gone. They're just waiting for you to come here so you can see him, so you can say your goodbyes. So it was hard.
Hey, this is Justin again. This is part 2 of the special edition Wham Bam podcast, starting season 2. Hope you enjoy it. We've already kind of talked about the health stuff. Let's dig. I want to start with that. So let's.
Well,
I know you've told your story on other podcasts,
Sure.
your own podcast, a little bit. Just give me the Reader's Digest version of what happened to you in Italy.
Well, in Italy, I family vacation, taking the family out, mom, the kids, going to Italy, having a dream vacation. Going to go out there for a few weeks. Going to be Easter, be in the Vatican, all that stuff. About 7 or 8 days into the trip, I got a huge case of vertigo, which I'd never had before. But I'm in the pool with my son, and I stand up, and then all of a sudden, everything's spinning. And I thought actually at the time, and it was funny because I only had one drink at the pool that day, and I thought at the time somebody roofied me or somebody put something in that drink. Like I knew I wasn't right, and I couldn't control myself. I was spitting, I couldn't see anything, and I started vomiting projectile, like there was a demon inside of me, like I was possessed. I had no clue what was going on, and I went down, and at that point, I remember what happened, but I didn't see what happened because at that point the light was bothering me so bad. They put a towel over my eyes, but then I became a show. According to my kid, I know Rock almost got in a fight with some kids. They were videoing me.
So you're still
stuff.
at the pool?
I'm in the pool. Yeah, I'm on the ground.
Wow.
I can't move.
So
projectile
you stand
vomited.
up. You're getting vertigo. You shortly after that you just
I
start to
went
vomit.
right. Yeah, I went right down to the
So
ground.
all this happens just in
all this instantly.
And
It was wild and wicked.
Wow.
The medic comes over.
So people probably thought you were drunk.
Yeah.
That's
for
why
sure.
that's why they're
for
like,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Especially kids saying all that.
Yeah.
They're laughing, probably.
Yeah, they think
exactly.
Yeah. They don't realize.
I'm wondering, did I get drugged? Yeah. Am I having an aneurysm?
Sure.
Because I can't. I don't know what's going on. Yeah. But all I know is it's not normal. And the medic comes over. The CPR. Unfortunately, he doesn't know what to do, and he literally says that. He says the lifeguard, the medic, doesn't know what he's doing. Fortunate, my son-in-law, Kian, who is, he is certified and trained, from his job. So he was there and, he was starting to take my vitals and everything else. And it was weird because my vitals were okay, but nothing else was. So they called an ambulance, of course. Ambulance came, tried to get me into the ambulance. And at that point in time, again, it was a show. It was a shit show just getting me to the ambulance.
Why?
From what I was told. Well, because I was up at the pool, which was on the rooftop.
Okay.
And in Italy, everything's very tight and very small.
Yeah.
So you can't get, and I couldn't stand up and physically walk.
So it was a logistical thing.
So, yes, it was huge.
It's not like you were fighting them or you were
No,
difficult.
no. I couldn't fight. I couldn't
Gotcha.
I couldn't control myself.
You were a sack of potatoes.
Yeah, I was. Is that right? They had to, basically pick me up, put me in a wheelchair. Yeah. Well, then the wheelchair couldn't get. They came up with the bed. Of course, the bed was too long. So they, eventually we got to the bed down below in the basement. So when they put me up in the ambulance, and this is during the Easter, and down in Italy, it's big parades every day. There's big segments, a lot of religious beliefs, a lot of people. They put me in the ambulance, and the ambulance takes off. Well, as the ambulance takes off, they forget to lock my bed down, and my bed shoots out to the door. The door's wide open. Boom! I almost end up in the middle of the road in Sorrento.
Come on!
I swear to God, this is. I
you
promise you.
You weren't filming a comedy.
No,
movie.
No, let me tell you, it's a true movie.
Wow!
And they had to stop the ambulance, come back around. My son-in-law, they wouldn't let in the ambulance.
So wait a minute. So you were out of the ambulance?
Yeah, I was in the ambulance on the bed, and I hit the bed, and the doors went open. So now my one front wheel was stuck. Oh, luckily my bed got caught on the other door.
Okay, so the bed didn't go out.
No, if they kept moving, it would have, type of thing. So they stopped the ambulance, came back around. Well, then they locked me in and they gurney me, and the whole time now they locked me in like this.
Yeah.
They got a towel over my head, and the guy's trying to stick a needle in me for an IV, trying to find a vein. Now, I'm pretty veiny. I don't have really a hard time, but this guy couldn't find it. And by the time I got to the hospital, Kian actually ran to the hospital.
Why wouldn't they let him in the ambulance?
Because of COVID. Still, this was right after COVID. You got to remember, Italy, everything that happened in Italy with COVID.
Of course,
we get to the hospital, they got no beds. They're still dealing with COVID, supposedly. And so I'm sitting in the ambulance now for, I guess, 45 minutes. I'm freezing. I'm keep in mind, I just got out of a pool.
Of course.
Right? And now I'm vomiting and everything. So I'm freezing. I'm chilled. Yeah, I'm just, I'm failing.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, holy cow, I'm going to freaking die right here in Italy in my home country, right? Yeah. I'm Italian, so this is where, this is the way it's going to freaking end. And I couldn't, so finally, they fought to get me in there. It's like, you guys, need to get him in there. He needs medical attention. So finally, and according to Kian, and that's why you got to really kind of listen to the very first podcast, which how it all started. But, he said, the guys that drove the ambulance, they went, smoked a cigarette, went off on the thing. They just left me there.
Left you there.
Just left me there. They didn't really care. So if you're wondering why a lot of people probably died during COVID there in Italy, it's the healthcare and how they treated people.
Of course.
They wheeled me in. I ended up in the hallway, which I didn't know was in the hallway, but I was in the hallway for several hours, and all I could do is hear a bunch of noise and smell cigarette smokes. And I didn't know where I was because I'm covered up and I'm dying of thirst. Now,
do you remember what you were feeling then? Still vertigo?
Yeah, no, I was still spinning.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't stop spinning for 2 or 3 days.
So your symptoms were still happening.
Oh, yeah. But I felt like I was failing because I was getting very dry.
Yeah.
I was dying of thirst.
Yeah.
They did not put an IV in me. They never put a bag. So I got a needle in my arm with no bag. Hours and hours going by. Kian breaks in, to the hospital and you guys haven't done anything with him. He still doesn't have a bag on him.
Yeah.
So finally a nurse comes over and they ended up, instead of putting fluids in me, they actually gave me a Direct that takes fluids out of me. So it worked totally the opposite of what I needed. So now I'm getting even more dehydrated.
Of course.
And I remember sitting there and I asked Kian, I was like, where am I? Am I in a cafeteria? Because this was sound like it was so busy.
Yeah.
And I smelled smoke and hearing noise. And people were laughing as they're walking by.
Sure.
And he's like, no, you're in the hallway, type of thing. And I'm like, wow. So I'm not even in a room.
Yeah.
So hours and hours later, when I got to a room, he said there was like 5 drapes and 5 different people. This guy had a leg off, and they were trying to work on him right in front of me. It's totally unsanitized, blood everywhere, needles laying on the grounds.
And what city
from people.
is this?
This is Sorrento. This is Sorrento, Italy.
Don't get sick in Sorrento.
Yeah, no, don't go to Rome. Go to Rome. But so I was sitting there at the time, and he came back. Now I gotta pee. I can't. You're peeing yourself.
So they're just not really tending to you in any way, shape, or form.
Not at all.
Not even giving you some water.
The one bag they gave me was a Direct, and of course they would kick Kian out of the room. Yeah. So he would break back in several hours later again. He'd come through and find a way to sneak back in, and he's like, "Holy shit, you're sitting there, you're dry. Oh my God, what's going on?" And now at this point in time, and I remember this specifically, I remember me biting my tongue to try to get saliva so I could swallow. And I had David Goggins in my head saying, "You don't fucking know me. I'm not dying like this. I don't want to die. I'm not dying here.
Yeah.
I got to keep at that point, I got to keep myself alive."
Yes.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
That's a scary feeling, man.
Yeah.
Because you see it in the movies and you see things, but to actually go through it and live it, I'm screaming and yelling. Nobody's attending me. Help me. I'm like, help me.
Sure.
I'm not getting nowhere. I'm not getting anything.
Yeah.
So he busts in again and tells them, "Hey, you guys are helping." Now, luckily, Kian is from Ireland, so he has a European background, so he blends in a little bit better.
Sure.
And people would talk to him. So he finally got a nurse. Said, "Okay, we're going to take him back, and we're gonna do an MRI on his to find out what's going on with his brain. Put him through a CAT scan test." So they wheel me back there and put me through, and now all I hear is, "We're gonna do brain surgery. We got to cut him all brain," because they couldn't find out why I was so dizzy. I had no balance. Literally, when they went to move me on the bed, they're like, "Stand up and come over here and get on." And I couldn't move. I couldn't move. So they ended up having to take a wood board and slide in under me, and they all pushed me over and slid me into the machine, and and I'm going through this, and I'm like, this is unbelievable. that this happened.
So their solution was to cut your head open.
Now they want to do brain surgery on me. They're gonna cut me open and do brain surgery on me.
Wow.
And that freaked me out. And of course, I'm like, oh shit. So thank God Kim broke in again, because every time he broke in, they would find he was there because he would draw attention to me to give me help.
Sure.
And then they would kick him out. And stuff.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, I was like, Kian, they want to do brain surgery on me, and I said, you got to get me out of here.
Yeah.
And he goes, can you get in a wheelchair? I said, throw me in a wheelchair. Like, you got to get me out of here.
Yeah.
So he got with my guide who I had hired then. They rented a van.
Mm-hmm.
He got me in a wheelchair. They threw me in a wheelchair. And, of course, they tried to stop us, wouldn't let us sign out. They didn't. We pushed through the doors and everything. And they laid me down in a van. And we drove to Rome, 3.5 hours. Got to a good hotel there and had the doctor come there because they were going to bring me to the hospital there. So I'm not going to a hospital.
Yeah.
If I'm going to die, I'm going to die with my family. I'm going to die on my own terms.
Yeah.
I'm going to have somebody cut me open doing all this stuff. So they brought the doctor to me, and then it took about 2 or 3 days. I then finally spinning stopped, but I still didn't have any balance. I couldn't walk. I was, I had a cane, and I was trying to get to the point where I could actually physically get on the plane, and thank God I flew Delta One, so they laid me down. I was like Stevie Wonder going through the airport with sunglasses on and a wheelchair, and I couldn't move, and because the light was bothering me so bad. And as soon as I got to, back here to America, I was back in the hospital for a couple weeks.
So what was it?
There. It was just an aggressive thing of vertigo along with a virus attack. So
all at the same time?
It's kind of like the perfect storm is what they said. Unfortunate, you got the perfect storm.
So the virus didn't cause the vertigo?
They feel like the virus did. The virus is what triggered it.
Gotcha.
Left ear weakness.
Yeah.
There's these 3 crystals in
Yeah.
Which
I know all about the
I
crystals.
learned about all this stuff.
Yeah.
I never had any issues. 53 years, never
Yeah.
had any issues.
Yeah.
Now, I'm an athlete. I work.
Yeah.
All of a sudden now, I can't walk.
Yeah.
And they're literally are training me how to walk again. I was on a dog leash. They had me on a dog leash during therapy, learning how to walk so I wouldn't fall over.
Yeah.
So I went through that for months and months and months, and still I couldn't get rid of dizzy. I did acupuncture. I did everything you could possibly, anything you could read online, anything you could try. I did it all,
So to this day,
and nothing helped me until I met with Gary.
So to this day, they still attribute it to a super bad case of vertigo and a virus. That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
That seems
Yeah.
like they. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's and then I felt like, okay, this is the new normal now. Like this is the way my life's going to be. I'm going to always be dizzy. I'm going to always be staggering. Like I'm 90 years old. I can't walk. It was horrible.
Yeah,
it was horrible. And like I said, meeting Gary and now cleaning up my system. He's like, no, we can fix this.
Yeah, and you have.
And we knock on wood.
Yeah. So do you have any lingering side effects?
I do. If I lay down, like when I do crunches or I go abs, when I lay down, there's times I look to the left. I'll get a little for a second or two. But nothing compared to. I mean, just don't.
Did they identify what virus this was?
No, just a viral infection.
Oh, just a viral infection.
That connected with.
Gotcha.
Into your weak left ear.
Gotcha.
And did all that.
Interesting. So. We talked about goals and things like that. I'm curious, when you were growing up, besides your mom and dad, who were your role models back then? Who'd you look up to?
LT, Lawrence Taylor, Tony Dorsett. Those were my role models. Yeah. As a kid, you watch, I was big into sports and football. I loved football.
Sure.
Unfortunately, I wasn't 6'4". I'd still be playing in my mind, type of thing. But, I mean, I think you find the guys that are doing what you want to do and what you love to do, those are, you pick your idols that way. It was never, I didn't really know about money because we didn't have it.
Sure.
Type of thing. So it wasn't even a thought of what you could do or what you could be, because I grew up in a small town. And actually, when I met you, if you remember this, you were at Lulu's, and I remember coming over to you and I said, "Do you know Small Town?" You played it by John Mellencamp. And you rattled off, and I'm like, "That's my dude right there." like, all right, cool. He knows Small Town, because that's where I grew up. Everybody knew everybody.
Yeah.
Type of thing, and you didn't know anything outside of that.
Sure.
And I'll tell you a funny story. When I actually moved to Georgia, I was debating whether to go or not to go. I had an opportunity. My aunt was here, and I had to go somewhere.
Well, before you finish, so were you still in that small town? Like you were
still in Geneva, New York.
Okay, so you you grew up there, you were born there, raised there, and you were on that precipice. You're like, what other cities were you looking at?
I wasn't looking at any at the time, okay, because I
So
didn't
you
know
had-
of any.
So you had no.
I didn't know of any. I mean, I had.
But I mean, you saw New York on TV. You watched.
Yeah,
You watched
yeah. But I was from New York, so I felt like New York was not that far out of it.
New
I went
York
to
City.
Yeah, I mean, I went to Yankee Stadium as a kid.
Okay,
I remember.
but you didn't have any aspirations to move to the city?
No, not at the time.
Really?
No, never really thought about it.
Well, was sports something that maybe a way out for you?
Yeah,
Were
well,
you thinking along those lines?
So, obviously I wanted to play ball.
Yeah.
Everybody's dream,
Yeah.
I'm play professional football and all that. Used to go to camp at Syracuse and stuff, growing up as a kid and wanted to be an Orangeman. Syracuse Orangeman was always the big thing. And, it turns out I needed to get an education, not so much, if I could play ball and get an education too, probably be the better way to go. And I was fortunate because Bill Maxwell, who actually was at Syracuse coach, moved over to Hobart, and he was coaching at Hobart. So I ended up going to Hobart, which was a Division III football team,
Gotcha.
and was able to play football for 4 years and do well, and had a pretty good career over there. And during the process, I got a good education as well. So, and that was another one of the you can't get into Hobart deals. Kind of like an Ivy League school,
Sure.
higher end. And,
Yeah.
in fact, I was a kid that had to go to summer school to prove that I could handle it.
Sure.
The day I graduated, the next day I went to summer school at the college. I had to go to college for 2 months to prove that I could handle the courses. and
Sure,
stuff.
sure.
Yeah.
All right, so you made this. So your aunt lived down in Georgia. So
Yeah.
you're about to move. Tell me
Yeah.
about that.
So I was, decided, obviously mom and dad didn't want me to go. Don't go nowhere, stick around here. At the time I was a school teacher. So I was a school teacher for 2 years. First year I got rookie of the year. Second year I got teacher of the year. I'm going to retire. I'm done. I've gone as far as I can go, I thought in my mind. But back then I think making $40,000 as a teacher, which was really good, at the time. But I wanted more. And I knew I was capped. What I'm going to be stuck in 10 years. I'm going to be stuck here, and it didn't fulfill me, right? I enjoyed the kids, I enjoyed that, so I was like, you know what, it's time to move on. I'm going to move on, and I was kind of forced to move on as well. Tell you a little bit more of that story. So in the process, mom and dad obviously didn't want. I had an aunt that lived here in Georgia, so I had an opportunity that at least I had some family here that I knew, and I went to my grandmother who was 92 years old, and I said, Graham, I said, I got an opportunity to go to Georgia, to move to Georgia and stuff. Mom and dad, everybody I asked told me not to go. I should stay here and keep working, school teacher, blah, blah, blah. And I said, what do you think? And she looked at me, and she used to call me Fully. She said it with an F because she couldn't say Phil. So she would call me Fully. So she says, Fully. She goes, take a chance, Columbus did. And those were her exact words to me, and they stuck with me my whole life. They stuck
love
with me.
that.
Yeah, take a chance,
Columbus
Columbus did. That's right. And I did. And that's when
great.
I packed up the car, and Georgia I came.
I love that.
So
We all
she
need-
was the only one that encouraged me and gave me the words to say, go ahead.
Go ahead and do it.
Go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
Type of thing. Where everybody else was, no, that's not the right place to go.
Yeah.
Stay closer to home. Stay closer in the area. Type of thing.
It's interesting because in my life, I've had a similar thing.
Yeah.
Because I was 13 and knew I wanted to get out of my hometown. I didn't know where I was going to go, but my mom didn't want me to move to Georgia. Nobody did. They thought I was going to come back in a year. They thought, oh, he's going to.
Oh, they always say you're going to fail.
He'll be back.
You're going to fail. Yeah, you're going to
I
fail.
found that out just recently,
Yeah.
and I was like, really? Anyway, back to you.
It's funny because one of the jobs that I took when I first got to Georgia, I was actually doing marketing and stuff, where I was basically pounding the streets, walking the streets, selling coupons and discounts and different things to anybody I saw. And we would do road trips. I would go to Nashville, and I would go to Chicago. I would get on a plane, and my father couldn't he's like, how do you do that? Like, how do you go to a city you've never been to, and stay there and make money? Like, how do you do that? You gotta find a hotel. You got to rent a car. How do you know your way around? They didn't have navigations back then. You didn't have a cell phone back then, and stuff. I mean, you had to Google. You couldn't Google
There's
stuff
no
to get the
Google stuff,
information and stuff. So, you're trying to get directions, and
yeah.
you're writing them down by hand and trying to figure out where you're going. And he was always amazed by that. He's like, dude, he goes, because when I would come home for the holidays, he's like, you don't cease to amaze me. I can't believe that you do what you do. So the thought of that was just, it doesn't happen, type of thing.
Mind blowing.
Yeah, it was mine.
It's interesting that people will say that about. I can't speak for you, but like, it was never. I had zero fear in picking up and just going, hey, what does this city look like? I've never been here. I'm going to live here now.
I think it's super cool because, you know, you realize how big the world really is. And, you know, it's like, hey, there's people over here. There's a house. I wonder what that guy's doing in his house over there, what he does. Look at this girl in the car. What does she do for a living? Like
Curiosity.
That. Yeah, curiosity. Like you're like, the world is so big and there's so much opportunity that I didn't know that existed, you know, type of thing. And that's really, you know, what it was. And it's funny because I look back, I even think about, you know, my first townhouse I had. You know, I had a townhouse and I thought I was living large. You know what I mean? I had an Infinity car, I had a townhouse, and I thought I was badass. I go back and look at it now and I go, wow, I was living like poverty, you know.
Sure.
But to me, I had it all.
Yeah.
You know, and stuff.
Yeah.
I had a 2-story home.
Well,
you know, I had it upstairs.
Isn't it your perception? Isn't it one's perception? You know, growing up, I didn't think we were poor, but if you ask my mom, who was an adult,
right,
she's like, we were dirt poor kid.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
it's all perception.
It's funny because like I used to go to school and I used to make, you know, mustard sandwiches.
Yeah,
and the kids would be like, you know, where's your meat? Where's your bologna? And I'm like, doesn't everybody have a mustard sandwich? Like, this is what I like. You know, that's what I mean. You know, I didn't know any different.
Exactly.
And that's what I'm saying. When people don't know what is possible, and I guess that's the thing that I you know, you talked earlier about, you know, if you were 20 years old, talking to yourself. Yeah. That's something I would say, you know, get out there and see the world a little bit and understand that it's much bigger than where you live. You know, it's
Did you have any fear when you found yourself in Atlanta and you're jumping on a plane and going to Chicago and doing these other things that you've never been to Chicago before? Where you're going to go do it? Did you have any fear?
You know, I didn't have fear, but I missed my family.
Sure.
Because back then, there was no FaceTime.
Yeah.
You couldn't see, you know, and you had to call them. And if you called them, you didn't leave a message because there was no voice recorders. You know what I'm saying? It was you had to find a phone booth and you had to give a quarter, you know, and you had to make sure that, you know, they were home at a certain time so you could talk to them. But I think, you know, I have a strong family, you know, bond. Being Italian, we grew up. That's how we, you know, how we are. And I think that was the biggest thing. I think when I was lonely and I got sad, you miss the family. You miss having somebody there that you know.
Oh yeah.
And finding new friends was hard back then, you know, because unless you worked with somebody, you know, or worked in a group setting, or you know, went to a gym, and I could afford those things right away. You know, so I wasn't going to a gym. You know, I was doing push-ups in an apartment.
Absolutely.
In fact, my buddy David. So here's how I actually got to Georgia. My friend David Kane, actually, who I met coming down to Georgia to the Super Bowl. I literally was in New York, and the Giants were playing the Cowboys. Cowboys was my team. I was a big Tony Dorsett fan, and I actually made T-shirts up. It was the second year they played back to back, and I made T-shirts up, and I had a Buffalo Bill breaking through a wall, and it said "We're back," and on the back it had a Dallas Cowboy had a Buffalo lassoed up and said "So are we," you know, type of thing. So, and I sold them for $20. Went to every bar and restaurant, different places in New York.
Nice.
Saved up, got $3,000.
Yeah.
And got my car and drove here for the Super Bowl. It was like going to the Super Bowl.
You're a hustler.
And so I would, you know, I had the mentality. Well, I met David at the Super Bowl, and you know, fortunate when I met him, we kind of just hit it off right away. He graduated Notre Dame, just a super cool dude. We're obviously really great friends to this day, and he let me stay at his apartment. He's like, hey, I got a 1-bedroom apartment. I got a sofa. You're welcome. You can stay on the sofa and stuff. And live here. So the first year when I came down, I didn't stay at my I stayed at David, stayed on the sofa. Yeah. And you know, and I remember we didn't have anything. It was Kool-Aid. We were drinking the Kool-Aids that you made. Yeah. The 10-cent Kool-Aid things. You made Kool-Aid and we were eating rice. Yeah. And on Fridays we'd go down to the billiards where, you know, you get a pitcher of beer for $4 or $5, and we would actually play pool for that pitcher of beer. And, you know, if we won, we had a good time. We'd play for a few hours, and we were doing well. And if we lost, we went home early because we couldn't afford to buy the beer anymore, you know, type of thing. But yeah, man, it's funny. And he's been super successful, and, you know, great to see, you know, where he's come to. But yeah, he was my very first home here.
Yeah.
You know,
I've heard a little bit about that. Yeah. So your role models were sports figures at that time.
Yeah.
When did you have your first, again, aside from your parents, when did you recognize your first financial mentor or someone where you were like, hey, not that guy's got a cool car, I want to be like that, but hey, that guy's doing something with money or finance, and I'm inspired by that. I want to head in that direction. Yeah. Who was your first role model that you can remember?
you know, some people aren't going to like this, but, you know, and again, it comes to going up to New York City and being there, you know, seeing Trump Towers
Yep.
and Trump Plaza and the gold, you know, on the inside and stuff. And it's like, who's this Trump guy, you know, and stuff. And he's got his own reality show at the time, you know, that he had. And he kind of, you know, I kind of drew to that because I'm like, you know, here's a guy who's working extremely hard. He clearly doesn't have to work. You know what I mean? He has plenty of money, so he chooses to work. And I kind of I latch on to people like that, you know? So I would have to say if I really had to look back at somebody back then, the first one probably would be Trump. Today's a little different. You know, I have, you know, major aspiration for Dana White. I know his story. I know what he's gone through. The way he runs his life, how he is just straight up. What you see is what you get.
Yeah.
He doesn't sugarcoat nothing. You know, he speaks from the heart. Some things he doesn't say right. And I guess that's kind of why I like Trump too. He doesn't say things right all the time, you know, but he just says what's on his mind.
Sure.
You know, type of thing. Yeah. But it's important to see how, you know, you treat people and others.
Yeah.
And the fact that, you know, they're still working and still growing and helping other people too. You know, that's important. And I like to kind of model myself to do the same.
Yeah.
You know, with
I
those things.
think, you know, I think Trump was that for a lot of people, especially if you were from New York, because
This is way before he was president.
oh, it was way before.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, way before. Because you know, this is before. I'm surprised you brought up the TV show because even way before the TV show,
Yes.
if you lived in New York, you knew who that guy was.
Yep.
It wasn't until later because you know he was definitely what you would classify as a socialite. You know, if you go back, he was in Home Alone. I don't know if you know that. He was.
Yeah,
he
that's
was in
right.
the
Yeah,
movie.
that's right. Yeah.
So he was a kind of a cultural figure in a way, just a rich guy, rich real estate guy from New York. And
Right.
So I think he was that for a lot of people. A lot of people aspired to that thing. Tell me more about the Dana White stuff. How did he come on your radar?
You know, obviously I was big into fighting. When he was involved in the UFC, and actually he didn't even own the UFC. When the UFC first started, I mean, I was a big fan. I used to go to all the fights. I was big
I
into
didn't know that.
jiu-jitsu. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Back Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz. If you go down, you know, if I took you down to my basement and show you all their, you know, gloves and photos of me with the guys and stuff, you know, because back then they did talk to you, you know, and they did hang out with you because they were trying to get fans,
Sure.
you know, and they were trying to get to be known.
Yeah.
You know, now you got to pay for that stuff
Yeah.
or you got to know somebody or they don't want nothing to do with you type
Sure,
of thing.
sure.
So, but it was, you know, and that's the one thing I remember about Dana White is I was in the crowd and he would stay after the fight and he would walk around and he would shake anybody's hand he would literally, fights would be over. Lights are on, people are leaving. And he was out there shaking hands and talking to fans, thanking them for coming
At
to
that
the fight.
time, what was his position?
At the time, he was the UFC. You know, he was the UFC president. You know, at the
President.
time, him and the
President.
Fratello.
Got it.
Yeah, they ended up buying the UFC at that point in time. But it was so new. Like
Yeah,
it was, you know,
yeah.
1 year into it. You
Yeah.
know, 2 years into it.
Sure.
And you know, he's out there shaking everybody. And I'm like, and then hearing his backstory of how you know he was a valet guy. You know, valeting cars and doing things, and how the risk that he took. And he was like, hey, worst case scenario, I can always be a valet guy.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking the worst case scenario, I can always go pick fruit. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I learned that trade, you know, a long time ago.
You tend to lean in toward guys who have your same philosophy.
Absolutely. I believe that. I like, and, you know, I think it's important. Like, you want to surround yourself with people that inspire you as well and have the same characteristics. Okay.
Just what we're talking about.
That you have.
Yeah.
And it's true.
Yeah.
Right. It's true. And unfortunately, you know, when you're not around that, it's not such a happy place.
Yeah.
But again, it's about elevating. It's about growing. It's about learning. And, you know, and I'm fortunate because I got a good group of people that, you know, I can learn from and they can learn from me. And I like to pass it along too.
Yeah.
You know, and stuff. But yeah.
So that evolution, you know, Dana White being somebody who you look toward as a mentor from a distance or whatever, you know, because he's gone through a whole health thing as well. So
Yeah.
much like yourself, much like anybody, all of us.
and that's why when he, you know, went public about what he did and his transformation, I was like, you know, there it is.
Yeah.
God speaking to me.
Yeah.
You know, there it is because, you know, I follow him because of the way he handles himself, not because he's rich and famous. I could care less. I really do.
Yeah.
You know, that means nothing to me.
Sure.
But the way he treats people, even though he's rich and famous.
Sure.
That's what's important to me.
Sure.
And I've watched him do that, you know. And on the flip side, I've seen a lot of people, unfortunately, be the other way. You know, that once they got rich and famous, they started treating people differently, and you know, you're one of the crowd type things, and that's the unfortunate part. There really is. I understand you have to draw a line sooner or later when you get to that level, but you know, that's one thing I'm never going to forget where I come from.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, speaking of famous, you're big Hollywood now. So for those of you who don't know, Phil has dipped his toe into the world of Hollywood. He's going to be featured in a film, in an independent film. Tell me about that.
So Vinny the Viper, baby. So Vinny the Viper, man. Imagine that, a mobster from New York, drug lords.
How'd they pick you for that?
So you know, so it's kind of funny. So it's going to be Blood Money 2 is actually the movie. So Blood Money was a movie that actually a gentleman that was on my podcast, Tyler was on my podcast, was actually the lead in that movie. And when he was down there, Tyler ends up calling me while he's shooting the movie. And he's like, hey, how would you like to be in the movie in one of my scenes? He's like, come down here in case we do a sequel. Because we're talking about a sequel where, you know, we get this guy from New York and he's a mobster and he's helping me out and he works for me and you would fit the role, be perfect. And I was like, when do I got to be down there? So he's like, can you get there tomorrow? And I'm like, yeah, I can make it happen. So, you know, be kind of cool. So I ended up going down there. And as soon as I got down there, they made me do an audition right in the parking lot. They were like, okay, this is your scene. This is what's going on. How are you going to handle it? Go. You know, just totally improv. And supposedly I knocked it out of the park, as they say. Yeah. You know, they're like, wow, you weren't nervous, you know, not good. I'm like, well, you know, I've been in sales for 30 years too. I talk to people for a living. Yeah. You know, I can handle it. But so actually it's funny because in the scene I wasn't supposed to have any words. I wasn't supposed to have any lines. I was just going to be a guy sitting there in a VIP section with some girls and him. And, you know, he was going to just basically say, hey, you know, I got to go off and do this thing. Well, turns out they ended up giving me a couple lines after that. And they actually added another scene for me while I was there. So I actually did 2 scenes for that one. Since that movie finished, they've decided they're going to roll Blood Money 2. And they asked me to be in that as one of his super co-features into that movie. So
that's going to create like a larger part.
Yeah, it's going to be definitely going to be a larger part. Filming in February, so they have it laid up on that. Vinny the Viper will be February and Blood Money 2. Nice. So me being the perfectionist that I am, I decided I'm going to take some acting classes. Yeah. Even though, you know, just want to. Of course. I want to give them the best version of Vinny that I can possibly give. Sure. And so I actually reached out. I have Felipe, who plays actually Pedro in Snowfall. So if you go to Amazon Prime, you'll see that big series. Super cool guy. He's been working with me directly, and you know, he said some really cool things, you know, and just, you know, 1 or 2 of my sessions. Cool. So yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Well, you know, kind of like what you said, you have been doing sales for a very long time.
Yeah.
Not that it's ingenuous, but you know, being in sales, you gotta
No, you gotta know your audience. You got to know who you're talking to, and you know, pull back and know when to, you know, fold them, as they say, when you got to do that.
So again, this is a special edition of the podcast. Let's talk about the podcast. How did the podcast even come about? What were you doing? What popped into your head? What inspired it?
Yeah, you know, so ironically, you know, it's kind of a funny story that my dad had always told me prior to that I needed to do motivational speaking. He's like, you know, you need to share your story. You need to speak. People need to hear you. Like, you motivate people, you know, and you know, I was coaching and doing it with kids. He's like, man, what you've done to some of these kids and some of these teams, and, you know, like, they're going to run through walls for you and stuff. Like, you need to share that stuff with the world, and you're gifted. He always said that. He's like, you need to write a book. He wants me to write a book. And it was like, I just didn't have the time. And when I say that, I guess I had the time. I didn't make the time, you know, to do those types of things. And, you know, and that was really what it was. It was just a timing thing. It was like, I don't have time to sit down and write a book.
You're a doer.
I have the book.
You're a doer.
Right. But I'm definitely going to do that book in the next year because I'm committed to that now. But, you know, ultimately, you know, I was sitting, you know, home when the whole thing with Italy went down, and I got sick and almost died. And I'm sitting there for 18 weeks with a port in my arm. Yeah. My son, Rocco, says, hey, Dad, you know what? Now would be a good time to try to do that podcast. You know, you could do podcasts, kind of pop up and telling you to speak to the world. You know, why speak to one person when you could speak to millions?
Sure.
And I'm like, nobody wants to hear me. Like, nobody wants it. He goes, that's not true, Dad. Like, you know, you'd be surprised. You should put it out there. Let me think about it. Well, in that process, every day people were calling me up constantly, wanting to know what happened in Italy. So I was telling them the story over and over again. I had to go through the whole drama over. So finally I said, you know what? Okay, son, let's shoot this first episode. We'll talk about healthcare when you leave the country. What you should know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, beware, right?
Sure.
Type of thing. And this way, anybody who wants to call me and tell me what happened, they can just listen to the podcast and they'll find out.
Yeah.
So that's how the first one got aired. We didn't have any video. We knew nothing.
It was based out of literal necessity.
Yeah. It was.
You were just sick of telling the story.
I was sick of telling the story.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And he had the idea, and I was like, finally, I waved the flag, like, okay, let's just put it out there and see. It's like, you know what? If we get 100 people to listen to it, you know, be cool, Dad. You're like, YouTube's so hard, and blah blah. Anything, it was like, I didn't expect it to even be this long. So
you put that first episode out, and what's the reaction?
It was amazing. I can't tell you how many phone calls and texts and different things that I got. So I can't believe you went through that. Then I was starting to read some of the people that were commenting and stuff that I didn't know. You know what I'm saying? And stuff. I was like, who's this?
Yeah.
You know, and stuff. But they're like, wow, I can't believe you went through it. You know, you're so right. You know, people don't think about these things. And, you know, so it was like, okay, let's do another episode.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, I started at that point, I started reaching out to some people I know.
Okay, well, before that second episode,
Yeah.
you're seeing the feedback.
Yeah.
You're going, wow, I don't even know this person. So, which means you've gone.
I've reached somebody
passed
that I
your
didn't know.
reach.
Yeah.
You've reached people you didn't know that were out of your circle.
Right.
So in your head, you're thinking, okay, let's do another one. Did you immediately have a topic for the next one?
Well, you know what? Originally, and it's funny because a friend of mine who actually was the mind doctor, we had talked about this probably 2 years prior, you know, a year or so prior and stuff, because I actually went through a divorce and going through divorce and went through some counseling and doing this or trying to just, again, be a better me and figure out what I did wrong because I'm not perfect. But in the process, we gained a bond and a friendship as well. And we were talking, he was like, man, we get along, so we should do a podcast, you know?
Oh.
So it was brought up, you know, back then. And so, of course, immediately I reached out to him to be my, first guest there.
Yeah.
To say, hey, man, we're going to do a podcast. I did one out, and we got a few people that actually wanted to listen to it. So let's do it. But now, again, being that it was on YouTube, you have to have video. So the first one, you're just going to see video of our logo because that's all we had. We didn't know.
Yeah.
Second one, was actually there was filming involved. So we, gradually we started, doing that. But it was cool because, again, even some of the famous people, I will say more famous, like a guy like Brandon Jacobs, who was a 2-time Super Bowl champ, and everybody knows him very, very well. We didn't focus on it. We focused on his kid, what it's like being a dad, raising your son, who's 6'9", 350 pounds, and now he's going through the process, that you went through in a whole different light.
Sure.
Because what people didn't know, like about Brandon, is he went to a junior college. He didn't go to Auburn right away, and then when he got to Auburn, he was a third-string running back. Yeah. And the first two ahead of him were first-round draft picks. Brandon wasn't, but Brandon turns out to have a better career and a better season. So it's such a great story, and watching his kid and what it's like growing up. So those are the things that I enjoy.
Yeah.
So it became kind of therapy for me, Justin. Talking to people and hearing the stories and different types of people and stuff. And it just kind of snowballed. It was just snowballed to the point where here we're getting ready. Obviously, season 2. We're launching season 2. We have a huge lineup, man, already.
That's awesome.
Where it's cool because guests now are reaching out to us. Which is great. And of course, I'll be honest with you, I don't like to say no to people because everybody's got a story, like you said.
Sure, yeah.
And everybody's worthy, type of thing. So
1000%.
It might, I don't care if 10 people watch it or 10 million people watch it. I'm putting it out there. It doesn't matter, type of thing. And that's where we're at.
What's your hope for the podcast? Because honestly, it could go as far or as big as you allow it.
I don't think of it, and that's why it's hard for me to do these things, like coming out and talking about me and talking about different, because I don't look at myself like that. People are like, wow, you're famous now, or wow,
that's not what I'm saying. Like the team you've assembled, what you provide to people, because it's really the podcast is not so much about you; it's about your guests,
Right.
And showing normal people. So it's kind of it's not saying, "Oh, Phil, you're so successful. This is great."
No, I know.
But you've created a platform for other people to shine.
Right.
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 So that can go anywhere.
Right, which is super cool.
Yeah.
But when you start getting recognized,
Well,
and
sure.
and this is where I was leading at. You know, for the first time, me and Rocco were actually in Vegas. We were walking through Planet Hollywood through the mall, and there was a guy at a kiosk, and he goes, "I know you." He goes, "You do a podcast?" And he's from Turkey.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he's sitting there in a kiosk, and I look at Rocco, and it's like totally organic. So it was like,
Yeah.
he's like, "Now that's impressive, Dad. Like somebody actually recognized you." And I'm like, "See, somebody is watching." So
Sure.
but those are things that motivate you to keep doing what
Yeah.
you're doing. You know what I'm saying? Type of thing. But yeah, I think the reality, where do I see it going? Again, as long as I continue to enjoy doing it, you know, if one person watches, I'm okay with it. I'm not in it for the money. Any money that we make, we're giving away anyways. We're going to donate and you know, do good things with it. So it's not about me. I'm not doing it for those reasons.
Sure, but it's cool because you have created a platform to help other people shine, and that's
Yeah.
really what it is. Whether they're people who are well known or famous people or any of that kind of, it's still a platform for people to shine. A lot of the podcasts I've watched, it does fall into your description of like everyday people doing extraordinary things or normal people doing extraordinary things, and it's really awesome to see. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, man.
I love watching the episodes, and I think
yeah.
obviously I love watching the episodes because I like watching you because I know you.
Right,
I was like,
sure.
oh, that's my boy. But so many of the people who you might start watching an episode, and you think in your head, oh, I don't know if I'm really interested in what this guy has to say.
Right.
But then by the time you're 15, 20 minutes in, you're like, wow, this is super interesting. Like this guy's doing this or whatever it is, and you're like, he's just an ordinary dude doing something cool.
Right.
And
And that's the thing. I've tried to get different. Like I didn't want to cater just to sports or athletes
Yeah.
or stuff like that. You know, once again, didn't want to just men. I wanted variety, right? We want to be like a variety of podcasts, right? Like there's not just one segment.
Sure.
It's because people ask that,
yeah.
you know, type of thing. But it's cool to kind of look on. Like I had a high school kid, you know, who was in high school. He was playing football. What is it like being a high school kid playing varsity football? Like there's kids that go through this and they want to know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The younger generation want to know. Now it's funny because now he's going to Georgia. He's going D1. You know, he's got a whole nother backstory, and
Sure.
and you know, I'm sure he'll go to the pros.
Yeah.
He's got to drive, and it'd be fun 5 years from now to look back at that and say, remember that day there.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, because it's cool because it is evergreen. It isn't going away.
Yeah, it is.
You know, type of thing.
Where'd the name come from?
Wham Bam.
Yep.
Well, that was me back in school. So I got that name in football, actually. So you remember back in the day, Chris Berman, when he used to, you know, I'm sorry, John Madden. John Madden used to speak.
Yeah.
Boom, bang.
Oh, yeah.
Wham, when he used
Yeah.
to do his commentating and stuff.
Yep.
Well, he always, you know, did that. Well, I was the guy that was the wedge breaker. I was the guy that I was on the field, you knew it because you heard me.
Yeah.
Boom, I was wham, bam. And it wasn't just one sound, it was always two because it took two, you know, it was going to take two blows. You were going to get two blows from me, not one, you know, type of thing. So, hence the fourth Wham Bam,
Yeah.
you know, Beniamino. So it was
Nice.
Wham Bam Beniamino. And that name stuck with me. And when I went to college and played football, a funny story about that, when I was in college playing football, my father wore a Wham Bam hat.
Oh.
But it was Wham Bam's father.
Gotcha.
Okay.
That's cool.
And as a freshman, I feel I'm going to get picked on, right? Which I did.
Yeah,
My dad
yeah,
wears a
yeah.
hat. I'm a freshman.
Sure,
I'm on a kickoff team.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm not even seeing a field. I'm special teams. That's it. Because I'm a freshman, going through all the hazing and all that stuff. But oh, well, look at Wham Bam. Oh, so you're Wham Bam, huh? You got your own little peanut gallery over there and stuff. So true story. I called my dad and I said, Dad, do me a favor. The next game, you don't have to wear the hat. Like I tell him, I go, you don't have to wear the hat. Well, you don't do that to an Italian father. Okay, you don't tell him what he can and can't do. Right? I learned that, right?
Yeah.
I'm telling him what he can't do, right? And he's like, why? And I was like, well, you know, I just don't want to get, you know, some of the guys brought it up. I don't want to get made fun of. Like, I'm trying to fit in here, you know, so I don't want to, you know, stick out like that. He goes, oh, really? He goes, that's your reason? And I said, yeah. So the next game, we go to the next game. Well, my uncle's there. Wham Bam's uncle. My aunt's there. Wham Bam's aunt. My mother's there. Wham Bam's mom. Wham Bam's cousin. I'm telling you, 12, 14 of them. now I have my own section of Wham Bam fans, and they have.
That sounds like something you would do right now.
Yeah, I would right now.
would absolutely
I would
do
absolutely do that. So, and it stuck. So in college, then everybody started calling Wham Bam in college and everything else. So
That's
just
a
kinda-
great. I
kinda
didn't know
stood
that
out.
about you.
Yeah. In fact, when my father passed, his hat's in his little in his memorabilia.
Do you still have the original one?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I'll get you a picture. You
That
could
is
post it with the pod. so
Tell me what's going on here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my man. Yeah, we were at a wedding. It was a ring bearer. It's me and my dad. So
Because that is a great photo.
yeah.
There's a lot going on there.
You know, you talk about who do you look up to?
Yeah.
And who was your inspiration? That was it.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
So,
Because that's a great photo. He looks happy. You look happy.
you know, my dad was a man of small words.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he worked his ass off. Never did anything. He suffered for us.
Mm-hmm.
My father would wear the same jean. He have holes in them. He wouldn't go buy himself new jeans so the kids could have jeans.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, you know, that's the way he was.
Mm-hmm.
And he was afraid of risk and stuff, and I understand why.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, like I say, he worked for Pepsi for 40 years, and back then he had profit sharing and all that. But the Depression hit, and they lost all of his money before he could retire.
Yeah.
You know, type of thing. And you know, nobody wants to outlive their money. Yeah, especially you know when you worked your ass off for all those years.
Yeah.
And it was tough, but he was the man. He was definitely my hero. I wish you talk about going back in time and talking to somebody for 5 minutes. He's the one I want to talk to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say?
Thank you, number one, for making me the man I am. Because I always fought him. Like I said, my dad was the guy that always said no.
Yeah.
I was always trying to prove him wrong. Didn't think he believed in me. Found out afterwards, you know, you learn more as you get older. Things start coming out and stuff. But it's hard because you know you still pick up the phone. I still dial his number, but he don't fucking answer. He don't answer. But when he don't answer, then I turn around, I look around the corner, and there goes a Pepsi truck driving on by. You know, ironically, it's just always that spiritual part. So, you know, but yeah, good man. He didn't deserve that. You know, he was the middle son of the family, so you know the baby's always the baby, so they're going to get attention.
Sure.
And the oldest is the oldest, so he's
Sure.
going to beat up on everybody underneath him. And Dad just kind of blended. You know,
Yeah.
he never got what he should have got. You know, because he coached his whole life, coached football, coached ball, and the sacrifices he made, nobody knows.
Yeah. Well, you know.
I know, for sure.
And I think that legacy that he started lives on with you. Because, you know, you've sacrificed for your family.
100%. You know, I want to make him proud.
Oh, I think
You know, I say that all the
Thank you.
time. At the end of the day, when I'm gone, that tombstone's going to say Beniamino. And that's the name he gave me. And I want him to be proud.
Yeah. Did you feel that he was proud of you?
Oh,
Toward the-
yeah.
Toward the end of his life? Did he?
Yeah, towards the end, for sure. You know, I kept him alive. So about 3 years prior to him actually dying, I got the phone call here. I was in Georgia. He was up in New York, Rochester Strong Memorial. He was basically in a coma. He didn't come out of it. And they called me up to basically go up there to say my goodbyes. And to get that phone call was not a good. Hey, you know, I got to get on a plane. I got to get up there, and
Devastating.
I'm gonna see him to say my goodbyes. And I didn't want to accept it.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful I didn't. I got up there and into the Strong, and literally within 3 minutes of me being in the room, he opened his eyes.
Wow.
Now, he didn't know where he was. He had a bad case of dementia at the time. But he woke up.
Wow.
And I stayed with him. And that's when I was up there and I started looking at all the medications that he was on. I said, Doc, I want to list him all his medications. And I started reading about it. Thank God Google came out, right? Started reading about it, and I started noticing, well, wait, you're giving them this, but the side effects are over here is this, but then you're giving them this pill. So those are counteractive and stuff. I said, I think we need to take them off one of these. And, got to the point where the doctor was getting mad at me. He's like, well, you're the power of attorney. You do what you want. And I'm like, well, I don't want him to live like this, and neither does he. And this isn't helping him. I mean, he was at the point where, where are my legs? My legs are gone. He thought he was back in a war and stuff. And I'm like, no, this isn't it. I'm glad he's alive. So we started taking him off different things and trying different things. And little by little, he got better and better and better. And within a week or two, he got back to normal.
Wow.
Yeah. So, a lot of prayers reached out. A lot of people prayed. A lot of people were in our corner. And thank God, God does hear prayers.
Was he changed after that?
Totally. And a lot more receptive, especially to me.
Yeah.
Because prior to that, he, was always, Dad's a man of pride, and it's hard when your kid, your kid's doing well, but when you're struggling, because you're trying to do all you can, but and I'll tell you a story, and this is for viewers that have kids, your parents, I remember I was doing well, and I wanted to, buy my father a dinner. Check would come around, and I'm picking up the tab. I pick up the tab. Well, he would get mad at me.
Sure.
And I'm like, don't get mad. I want to do this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can do this. Let me do this.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize he got mad to the point where it's like, I'm your father. I can't buy you a steak. And I didn't think about it like that. I was just thinking I was so proud. I wanted to help. I wanted to do something, but it made him feel like,
sure,
hey, I can't afford to do this, type of thing.
Yeah.
And you never take your parents' pride away. Give them that pride because they earned it, and they deserve it, and taught me a lesson that day, and stuff. But
well, it's a fine line, because you giving your parents when you were 10 years old that trip to the that wasn't
Marriott.
That wasn't taking their pride away,
right?
And so you continued that, so you had to figure out where those boundaries were.
Yeah. I bought him a car. It's like I bought him he's got a Navigator. Back in Geneva, New York, they're like, who's this guy with a blacked out Escalade, this Italian mafia guy coming out of this, They all thought I was into drugs or doing something illegal and shit. But that was always the joke of the town. But I was prideful, but I could have never done that without having good parents. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But as a prideful parent, they don't see that. It was almost like, it wasn't meant to be a slap in the face.
Sure.
It was meant out of love.
But after he had that ordeal and came back, he didn't have that anymore.
He started to accepting help.
Yeah.
And like I explained to him, I said, and I use this thing, not that I'm no Michael Jordan at all, but I said, Dad, you don't think Michael Jordan bought his parents a house? It's okay.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, the greatest thing I ever did in my life was I bought my parents a house in Florida. And, my father lived in New York. They had heavy winters up there.
Yeah.
And he was at a hard time walking. And there was one morning, my mom came home from work, and he was head first in a snowbank.
Wow.
Because he slipped and fell, and he couldn't get up.
Wow.
And my mother couldn't get him up either, so she had to go down to the road, flag a few cars down, to literally go up there to help him to get him up. And at that point, I said, he can't spend the winters up here in New York no more. I said, I got to get him a place in Florida.
Sure.
And I was going to make that happen, and I did. And I knew he wasn't going to like it.
Yeah.
Like, I knew what I was going to deal with
Kicking and screaming.
when I give him the keys to the house and
Sure,
stuff. So
sure.
I remember the show Move That Bus, when they would do stuff like that.
of course.
So I set something up like that, and
that's good.
for him. We did the whole walkthrough and everything else and move the chores. But yeah, he was, at that point, he accepted and realized that, hey, I needed to,
That's great.
and stuff. So it was joyful.
Were you guys able to have a conversation where a little bit more of his guard was down at that age and what he'd been through, and he started to realize things were a little bit more important? Did you have a conversation before he passed?
So my dad accepted things.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a hard time. I don't accept things, Justin.
What do you mean?
I'll give you an example. And Dana White said this best. I'm going to quote him on this. When he turned 50, all the aches and the pains and everything, you thought, okay, this is the new 50. It doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah.
But so many people have that perception.
They do.
this is what 50 feels like. So this is my new feeling. No, I don't want to feel like this. Then you got to do something about it. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like, my dad accepted the fact of where he was. He was a bad diabetic. He's taking 2 shots a day. He's like, okay, I'm losing my legs. I can't walk. And I'm like, no, we're going to get you a walker and you're going to walk. We're going to go outside and we're going to walk, I got a couple little videos of him. I played a Rocky music and him walking in his walker, and shit stuff, but just to get him to move, to say, see, you said you couldn't do it. And I would fly down to Florida and I would get him to do what he said he couldn't do. And he's like, son of a bitch, you're always telling me, doing what I tell you I can't do. I was like, yeah. So, you don't have to accept what somebody thinks or what somebody says. I don't care how old you are. You know what I mean?
I agree.
And that's the part of it. Even being in Italy, laying in that bed, I accept the fact. I can accept the fact I'm going to die right here, or I can try to get my mind to a position where I got to fight through this. You know what I mean? And live for another day. And that's what real survivals are. I find that. That's a reality. So I wouldn't allow him to accept. He was okay dying. I know that. I know he's at peace. I know in his mind he lived a good life. He'll tell you. We've got him on video. Saying I know my daughter went and thank God she interviewed him one time a year before he died, and he's grateful. He's just a grateful man. Regardless. And so I'm happy for that. I'm happy for that for him.
Well, you have a new chapter in your life. You are a granddad.
Yeah, that's different.
Well, all the things we've talked about, that's a role. Could you even imagine? Could you?
That messed up all my plans, Justin.
Well,
okay.
This little gem right here.
That's my bachabella.
That's a thing you don't see coming, is it?
No. Nor do you really plan for that. You talk about, retirement. What are you going to be? Where are you going to be? When the kids leave the house, where are you going to go? I'll go down to Florida. I'll live in a penthouse up there, not have to worry about. And then all of a sudden, you're a grandpa.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, wait a second.
Everything changes.
Yeah, everything changes.
Yeah.
You got to have a home. I don't want to leave. I got to be around, So grandpa. Exactly. And stuff. So. Yeah,
so what is your official grandpa name? You Papa?
I'm Papa.
Papa.
I'm Papa, yeah.
Gotcha.
My father was Papa, so I took over his name.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I didn't know there was different names. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Poppy, Grandpa, there's all kinds of
things, especially for the women.
Like, mine was Poppy.
Poppy?
Yeah, Poppy.
Well, see, you can't be Poppy because that's, that means, your boyfriend, right? Hey, Poppy.
That's the Latino Poppy.
Yeah.
This is different Poppy.
Yeah.
So my grandmother's name is Ruth.
Yeah.
Her name was Ruth. But as a little kid, I couldn't say Ruthie. I couldn't say Ruth. So I said Rupee.
Oh, yeah.
So he became Poppy, Rupee and Poppy.
I got you.
That's where that comes.
That's funny. So see, Kylie, you can say Poppy.
It's not Poppy. It's not that Poppy.
No, she's like
different.
That's
Poppy.
weird because I was like Poppy's
Poppy.
there. Yeah.
So I know that she's a new addition to the family, but what are your plans for her? Like, where do you see your life affecting her life?
Hopefully I did a good enough job with my kids. I mean, that's step one.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's going to plant some. She's got the life by the balls, don't even know it yet, type of thing. But it's unfortunate and fortunate, and I'm going to say that in two ways, because people that are in different points in their lives, okay, put children into those situations, and the children's become a product of that.
What do you mean?
And I'm gonna clarify that so I can. I'm being careful how I say that, so I want people to understand that. For example, the way I raised Kylie. Kylie wasn't born in a 15,000 square foot home with cars and things in that point in my life. And point in my life with her, I didn't have those things. So she was raised much differently. In fact, as a single father, she came to work with me, sat on my lap many days and stuff. We went on sales calls together. Yeah. She's got a few sales in her bucket, and stuff. But totally different.
Yeah.
Rocco woke up to a whole different avenue. And I feel like as a parent, sometimes when you want your kids to have everything you had and more, right? That's the ultimate goal. Give them what you had and more. right?
And that doesn't necessarily have to be money.
No, not at all. For example, I failed with Kylie. That was the hardest thing when I had a child, because I failed because I had a mom and dad growing up, and I couldn't provide that for her because me and her mom weren't together.
Sure.
And I was like, wow, I've already struck out.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know how to be this father thing. And you know, the whole story with her, if you listen to the other things, it was a hard time. I had a real hard time getting her, but it helped me. But yeah, I visited every jail in this state fighting for her and getting custody of her. And it was during the O.J. Simpson times. There were some many black nights.
Yeah.
Okay, there really was. And many nights where I didn't know if I wanted to be here either.
Yeah.
You know, type of thing. You know, if this was life, why am I living?
Yeah.
Like you get to that point, right? And this is before you have access to so many other resources that these kids today have. But you know, so Kylie has a different type of soul. Now, Rocco's got a beautiful soul too, don't get me wrong. But I probably spoiled him a little bit more than I should have as a parent. Yeah, it's different. It's different. You know, and I you know, he has, which I hope he utilizes that as a level that he has to level up as well, which he can go beyond for his children.
Sure.
So, you know, time will tell.
How do you think that'll affect her?
As far as Capri, I'm already seeing that. Just the way they interact together is magic. You know, you know, we actually went on a first family beach trip, you know, together, and just kind of watching Kylie or Capri and Rocco interact is different than obviously Capri and Kylie interact.
Sure.
Because that's mommy.
Yeah.
You know, and stuff. But even Kylie's such a great mom because she knows what she doesn't want to be, because her mom wasn't around at the time. And of course, you know, the mom that she had didn't come along until she was 6 or 7, you know, and that's all she knew. And then unfortunately that didn't work out either. So, you know, it's been a tough road, you know, for my kids. And I blame myself because they didn't have any choices, Justin. The kids aren't born and say, hey, I want this guy as my dad.
Yeah.
It's like, here's your dad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They didn't get to pick me.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's important what they think of me. And it's important that I try to do the right things all the time. I know I scream and yell a lot more than I should. I've gotten better. I'm going to continue to grow on certain things. But I also know I do it all out of love.
Yeah.
Because times are different. And the way you talk to people, the way that, you know, people are motivated, it's different.
Yeah.
It just is.
It is. Yeah.
You know? And it's funny too, because just interacting with people, conversations, they don't have them today. There's no conversations.
It's different.
They texting. It's like, why are you texting? You're on your phone. Call them. You have a phone. Call them. Don't you want to hear their voice and speak to them? It's, you know, and I feel like, unfortunately, it handicaps people in relationships. You know.
I think it does. It's the older that I get, and I see the generational gap. You hit upon something that's kind of a bee in my bonnet as well. Just pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing right now, you're taking 30 minutes to do this text exchange, could be done in 5 minutes on a phone call.
Well, here's even worse now. Now they'll press a button and they'll say it anyways. So you're talking anyways.
Yeah.
And then it converts it to a text, right?
Yeah.
You know, and people read texts differently. I know I do.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
I do and stuff. So that's an issue as well. So, but they don't have the interact. You know, I think back and, you know, talk about, you know, old fashioned tradition Italian. You know, company. I remember going out, you know, and visiting family members, you know, during the week or whatever. Dad, hey, come on, we're all getting in a car. We're gonna go visit Aunt Santa. Or, you know, that was normal.
Yeah.
You went and spent time
with people,
with an aunt or uncle or other people.
Yeah.
You know.
Sure.
For no reason. You didn't have to have a setup. You didn't have to go eat. You just popped in.
Yeah.
And you sat around. You talked about your day for an hour or two.
Yeah.
Us kids played together with the other kids that were there, and you went home.
That's exactly how it was. Yeah.
You don't see anybody going and visiting, but it's like they got to meet at a restaurant, if that, just to eat. And then when they're at a restaurant, they're on their phones talking to somebody else anyways.
It's a different world.
It's a huge different
It is a different world.
So
I've got one last question. So we talked about a little bit this. If you were able to sit down with a group of 20-somethings, 21, 22, 23, and you had some time to give them some guidance, give a little bit of advice. Maybe this kid wants to go into finance. This kid wants to be an entertainer. This kid wants to be in politics. What advice would you give? Just general advice to some kids out there who were looking to improve their life?
Sure. The first thing I would do is say set rules. You know, kids don't understand about rules, right?
What do you mean by rules?
Rules, money rules. People don't understand the value of a dollar anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. Everybody wants to make money, but why do they want to make money? I want to make money because I want a nicer car.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make money because I want to live in a nice spot. I want to make money because I want a nice watch. They want the perception that they're doing better than what they really are, instead of actually trying to achieve their actual goal, which is to do well, right? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't get there because of that. It blows my mind, and I just have to touch on this, the fake shoes that kids will wear because, oh, those are $1,500 if they're new. Well, why would you wear fake shoes to act like you have $1,500 shoes if you don't have $1,500? Like, what is the reasoning for that? You know, it's not because they like the way it looks. It's because it's worth, somebody will think I'm wearing a $1,500 shoe, you know, type of thing.
Don't you think that's part of our, you said it in the very beginning, very beginning. They do not teach finance in school.
No, they don't.
I wasn't taught.
Right.
You weren't taught.
No.
But these kids, and I say these kids, even us, you know, Jordache jeans when we were kids, you know, if, you know, there was a big thing that happened in the 80s that you would go into a department store and you would go take a scissors and you would snip off the triangular Guess jean. Do you remember that?
Yes, yes.
So Guess jeans were getting the labels ripped off of them, and then you would sew them onto a cheap pair of Levi's because they were really expensive back then.
Right.
But it was because that perceived value gave you value.
Yes.
It made you look important. It made you look cool. It made you...
So we have a self-confident issue.
Well,
right?
But if kids were taught in school, hey, here's where your money's going to do well. You put it in this, you put it, not what you have on your body, then kids wouldn't do that.
I laugh about the jean thing that you just said because I got these, I bought some purple jeans, right? And the only reason I bought them is because my son told me, oh, Dad, purple jeans are the best jeans, but they'll never fit you. Well, since my transformation, they actually fit me.
They fit you.
So he's like, don't pull the tags off. You lose the value if you pull the, I go, I didn't buy them for the value.
Yeah.
I bought them to wear.
Yeah,
type
exactly.
of thing. But he was more worried about that than
Yeah,
anything. But
yeah.
that is their perception and stuff. So I think, you know, ultimately the kids, I would tell a group of 20-year-olds, which I do, I'm fortunate because a lot of these kids do look up to me, and I've coached a lot, and I do. And the first thing I tell them is like, especially if you're living at home and you have the opportunity, you're putting money away, what do you do with it? That's the thing, like, you know, and it's like, don't go buy the car. Don't go buy the purple jeans or whatever it is that you're trying to do. Have rules set. The 30-30 rule, like I said, live off of 30%. You know, people today be like, well, shoot, if I make $1,000 a week, how am I going to live off of $300 a week? I can't even pay my mortgage. We're not talking about you. We're talking about the 20-year-old.
Yeah.
Okay. He's not going to buy a house until he has the money, the 20% to put down.
Yeah.
You know, type of thing. If he sets rules now at a young age, I got Capri, my granddaughter, rules already. You know, people gave her money for baptism, for christening. If you give her $20, guess what? You're not allowed to spend that money. It goes into her savings. And you know what? We're going to take 3%, 30% of, and put it over in another account. So when she's old enough, if she wants to go buy a toy, she's going to go buy a toy.
Yeah.
These kids, they go to parties. They go to birthday parties and this and that. They get a $20 gift card. What do? They go to Walmart and they spend the full $20.
Yeah.
Well, what mom and dad should do is give them $6 and go to the dollar store.
Yeah.
They're still going to get a toy. It doesn't matter. They're going to outlive the toy, right?
Yeah.
But they're never going to outlive the money. But that money can start making them money now. So it starts with the parents, but starts at a young age. And people can do that now. And if they do that now, they're going to have so much more of a head start than a guy like me or yourself has ever had in the world. So I would tell, you know, anybody, I tell 20 years, but I tell this to the parents too, is that, man, do your kids justice. They get a gift. People got mad at me like, oh, you took Rocco's, you know, gift card. Like, he'll get a gift card. Like, even if it's just Starbucks, he'll get a $25 gift card. He ain't, well, Dad, it's Starbucks. I'll buy the gift card from you. Here's $25. Now, what's the rule? Okay, 30% of that. You're going to take stuff to $7.50. Here you go. Go do what you want with. Go to Starbucks, spend your $7.50, and the rest is we're going to invest and do other things with. You know, if they do that now, they don't have to worry about a guy like my father who busted his chops for 40 years and outlived his money because they lost it all in the stock market because of it. Yeah. You know, type of thing.
Yeah.
So I would, you know, that's what I would coach. And that's the one thing I think is missing. You said it yourself. It's not taught in school.
Yeah.
These kids don't know it. And it's sad. It's sad. So you got to teach it at home. And if your parents aren't doing it as well, then it's a problem. A lot of parents, it's just too easy. Kids get $20, they'll go play. It's their money. Let them do what they want with it. Okay. And when they're 17 and when they're 27 and when they're 37 coming to you because they need money,
Yeah.
it's because, remember you said, go spend it the way you want.
Yeah.
And now they're getting what they want, not what they need.
Yeah, it's true.
Type
yeah.
of thing.
Well, I sense a Wham Bam finance course, an online Wham Bam finance course that you can pay for.
Actually, we're actually working on something. Working on something for that. So, how to,
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed this special edition of the Wham Bam podcast. I have been Justin Borgman. This has been Phil Beniamino. Phil Wham Bam Beniamino. We had a great time today.
Dude, I can't listen. What a great job you've done. Thank you so much, for bringing this out, because it was your idea and you brought it to light. Literally brought everything to light. Okay, and
well, I wanted the story to be told.
It wouldn't have been better with anybody else but you.
Well, I appreciate
that's
that.
awesome. You did a great job.
I appreciate it. I wanted it to be done right, and I wanted you to feel like you could express yourself. And we've known each other for a long time, and I love learning more about you too. Yeah, I love it. I didn't know that about the Wham Bam. I didn't know that's where that came from.
Yeah,
I thought that was brand new.
Yeah,
so I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for watching. Please support the channel, the Wham Bam podcast here on YouTube. It's awesome. Phil has a lot more going on. Keep an eye on him. Subscribe, like, tell your friends, comment. We'll see you guys. This is Phil. I'm Justin. Thank you very much, guys.
And remember, stay positive.
Always.
Beautiful smile to hide the pain. Did you ever know that you're my hero?
Hear that? Who's walking? Yeah, walking, baby. Come on, Rocky. Come on, Rocky. You got this. Come on, baby. That's my hero right there. Look at that, huh?
Oh, baby.
Come on. You're almost there. You start screaming, Peachy, I did it, Peachy! Peachy! Love you, Dad. I'm happy.